Alright, welcome to the gameplay guide of MagnaGarurumon. The first matchup we're facing off against is gonna be Royal Base, the Bees. I know you guys been saying not the Bees, but you know what? We're gonna have a lot of fun here. I'm gonna be starting off with a yellow base. We are going second as well, which is kind of nice. The main idea of this deck is really just trying to see tamers, a little bit of searchers. I'm not too worried about not seeing a rookie because I just want to establish the tamer as soon as possible. The deck, how it functions and how it plays, is fairly similar with the Emperor Greymon. The sooner you can establish the Takuya and Koji, the greater the value it is, because my plan is if they don't have a memory setter, then turn after turn I'm going to potentially play JP, put them at 1, and then use Boko to search eventually to find the rest of my pieces. Because again, most of the rookies I'm running in this deck are just mainly focusing on searching for the time being. But just so you guys know, this is sort of my first draft play testing stage of this deck, so stay tuned for the full deck profile coming soon. So make sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell for sure. But here I decided to go for a Lowy play, and I felt like I could go for some combos. I kind of want to go into Rihi because I can probably potentially get a JP out, but I kind of can't utilize Lowy's effect. So here I'm actually deciding on how I want to actually utilize this effect. I did initially trash Metal Kabuteru, but I'm not actually able to attack the opponent because of their Waspmon. So I was also contemplating, okay, would Rhino be the better choice here either? So it's a little bit tricky on what I was trying to decide to draw and trash. For the optimal Rihi play, you want to have both Rihi and a Tamer in the trash so that Lowy can go into that Rihi. But since Lowy can't even attack the opponent, I won't even be able to use the Rhino for collision either to sort of Digivolve as I'm attacking. So in the end, I decided to toss away the JP and just Digivolve into Rihi straight for 3 cost and play the JP back out just to ensure that I have these tamers established. And I think JP is really valuable, especially in the early stages of the game, because it just helps you cycle and draw and set up stuff in the trash, which is really crucial to ensure that we can find the rest of the pieces. Because right now we really need to find our MagnaGar, we need to find our light to dark option as well, or dark to light, sorry, and we want to find the rest of the stuff so we can gather and continue, so then we can potentially spirit unify, Digivolve into MagnaGar, and alongside we also need Koji. But that's totally fine because as long as I have a purple source to work with. Here our opponent is actually pretty strategic with it. They de-Digivolve once only on our Rihi so that we won't get the Takuya and Koji memory setter back at this moment, and they're trying to look for ways to get rid of this stack that we have, the hybrid, just because Lowymon's inheritable is just really nice. When the Digimon will ever leave the battle area, we can just straight up play the inherited tamers back, and most of these level 4s have that effect essentially, and they're playing around that. They're trying to give us quite a bit of memory to work with. Going into Tyrant here is pretty huge, and things might be starting to get a bit worrisome. They are gonna give us quite a lot of memory to work with because they just hard slammed this Tiger Vespamon here. But with that, they bottom deck our Lowy and we lose our Tamer right there, which puts us in a very tough spot. Even having 6 memory to work with, which is nice, we can sort of try to reset up again, but losing a Tamer is pretty detrimental to this deck, and having those two strong big bodies on the board is pretty tough to manage. But continuously we need to try and cycle and draw as much as possible with JP. There's a Boko to work with, so I think searching is fantastic. I'm really contemplating on grabbing the MagnaGar here just because again it's our boss monster that we want to get into, but I also feel like I really need another level 4 hybrid to work with, especially I can just Digivolve for 2 on top of JP if I grab that Beetlemon. So I'm really trying to think clearly on what I want to do. And you know what? I went for the lower end play just because I felt like, you know what? I need to prioritize on the lower end play at the moment. Otherwise, I can't even get access into my top end. Thankfully, I managed to find a Takuya and Koji, so I decided to slap it down again. I felt like I didn't need to Digivolve into a hybrid, even trying to utilize Boko's effect to gain 2 memory back. Just because it's got 2 big bodies here. And Tiger Vespamon has blocker as well. The Royal Base deck is really interesting. You have to really pay attention to what they have in the security because it's face up and they all have extra buffs. At least all the level 5s and under. So that's really important to pay attention because I couldn't just swing nilly-willy with that because the Tiger Vespamon will block. But here they're just going to continue to establish a bigger and bigger board presence. They have so many resources set up already. They have everything they need in security. They have a lot of tools. Tiger Vespamon comes in. Thankfully, we checked into a MagnaGar, which actually takes it down because that card is honestly really scary. It can like potentially like attack 2 times a turn. It can block 2 times a turn even. And it has reboot itself. So that we got pretty lucky there. Really, really lucky. But this is where we need to take advantage right now. This is our potential opportunity to continue to cycle and draw. We're still in the game just at the moment. The Royal base deck, since they don't have the Queen Beemon just yet, or they have the Queen Beemon underneath the Tyrant, but they don't have a second Queen Bee or level 6, they aren't able to sort of chunk us down as quickly. I'm trying to evaluate here, am I going to lose the next turn? And I feel like I'm not, so I feel like I could actually control the board a little bit. Hence why now I go into the BT18, because my intention with the BT18 is once I swing into the Vespamon, I want to try to get into Metal Kabuterai, so I can de-digivolve and at least get rid of that stat, because I know it's coming. The Queen Bee in that security is going to be coming thanks to winner, the Tamer, the next turn. So I have to deal with that. I don't want to see Queen Bee just because, again, that basically allows them to have even more pressure, even more free bodies, and potentially alliance for a ton of checks and take us down. So yeah, that's why I went to Metal Kabuterai. Here, there's actually a few options. I was contemplating on going to Jet Sylphie so I could recover, which is going to be nice to keep me a little bit more healthy in the game. And then I can actually pass them to 1 by going into Koga Kabuterai in the back for 1 cost as well. So it'll be Jet Sylphie for 1, Koga Kabuterai. But I ended up going for this play with Strabby and putting down the Koichi because I don't have a purple source. I need a purple source to ensure that I can use my option later on. And I'm okay with the Metal Kabuterai getting removed because thanks to, again, BT18's inherited effect, I can play the JP back out if they're not able to de-digivolve us or play around it, like kind of like how they did in the prior turn. It doesn't look like they have a de-digivolving Royal base card to work with, which I forgot the name at the moment, but that was a really early good play around. But now we're pretty much set up because we have both JP, Koichi, we even have Takuya and Koji to utilize off of it. And this is really good because now we found our option, Dark to Light. So here, just with procedures, I definitely should have pushed up Strabby first. That was my intention, which I forgot anyways. And then I'm going to start using the Koichi and JP. JP first to draw in cycle cards, and then use Koichi to gain a memory, and then tuck some sources underneath Takuya and Koji. I'm going to call it Koji because mainly it's a Koji deck now with MagnaGar. So we're going to chip away at the security. We need to deal some damage. This is a great opportunity. The Tyrant doesn't have redirect. Tyrant is a fantastic card in Queen Bee and Royal base. But the only downside is they kind of lose a little bit of the really strong control tools of the regular Tyrant deck. So it's still a really strong card, but now we can go into MagnaGar. One of the still tricky things because it's really strong, as long as it's suspended, it just continuously becomes unaffected by anything that we try to dish out at them. So you know what, we're just going to go for attacks. Since they don't have redirects, might as well use MagnaGar attack. And I'm contemplating, okay, do I want to grab the top of my security here to unsuspend technically just before the check happens? And I was like, yeah, you know what, it definitely makes sense. At least I could cycle the security a little bit, tuck something underneath back as well, so then I can set up a little bit earlier. And having a MagnaGar here is going to be really good for us. I'm not too worried if the MagnaGar gets deleted or removed because I have multiple of the Dark to Light options to utilize. I'm also not really worried if they try to attack into us just because I have a Susanoo Ace ready to go. If I can get the Susanoo option card, I can potentially finish the game. That would be even better, but we're missing that at the moment. We're not too worried. We can actually utilize and we'll actually make do and we'll manage without it. Susanoo is a great, fantastic way to instantly KO the opponent, but we don't necessarily need it. I'm going to show you guys that we're still able to work with this. They're going to go into the, I forgot the level 5 name again, but de-digivolving us too, which is nice. Then we still have MagnaGar armor, lucky enough for us, a level 6 to work with. But here it doesn't really matter because it's just going to bottom deck it with Tyrant. And by bottom decking it, we lose our stack. That's okay because all our resources can always be grabbed back from the trash thanks to Dark to Light. I noticed they didn't want to swing with Tyrant here because as long as we have a level 6, we can always blast Digivolve. And when we blast Digivolve into Susanoo, we can potentially just get rid of their Queen Bee. And once they lose their Queen Bee, then they have a suspended Tyrant. Sure, that's fine. Susanoo's just going to finish the game the following turn anyways. So they are playing around it a little bit, but this is also a really good opportunity for us now. Because what we want to do is, since the Tyrant is unsuspended, that means one thing: it's unaffected. So we have all the setup pieces here, and this is one of the nice things I really like about this new warping spirit unification option card, is that we don't necessarily always need to have Takuya and Koji. It's nice to have it because we can attack at the end of the turn, but as long as we have 3 memory to work with and we can start to keep our turn, we can stack all the stuff here underneath again. And this is why I'm making sure that having double MagnaGar to work with is going to be really important here, because we want to tuck at least one MagnaGar underneath so that we can Digivolve into MagnaGar, so then we can put away our level 6 from the sources to delete all their level 6s. And this is the whole intention, and I went on top of JP because I still want to keep the Koichi in terms of the color requirements for potentially using another Dr. Light if I ever have one, or if I kept one or otherwise. But here, this is such a great value board removal at the moment that I just can't miss out on this opportunity. This lets me get rid of it, both for the Queen Bee and both the Tyrants as well. Right here, we're just double checking that Queen Bee should include itself when it would leave the battle area as a royal base, where it can actually go back into security. So we're just double checking here, and just wanted to read the card to make sure. And I'm pretty confident and pretty sure, because that's kind of what the text says. But yeah, so Queen Bee goes back into security, and then here with MagnaGar, we can go ahead and make 2 hits. We definitely want to unsuspend. I'm also thinking if I want to use any inheritables, of course, Lobo, we have 7 fewer cards, draw for that for sure. Make the second attack, since they don't really have anything in the raising that they can work with. They only have 2 winners, which only gives them 3 memory in total. So we're just going to put them at 1 with Kokabuteri. And we're basically setting up for lethal at this point. And if not able to climb up anymore, this turns out to be a pretty decent grinding game, because with Royal Base, it can kind of get grindy. They have a lot of control, but they don't have a lot of recursion with resources. So they're going to have to rely on whatever is left in their hand. They don't, they can't utilize anything in the trash. Without much security left either, they can't do too much aside from just research and setup. And looks like our opponent doesn't really have anything that can sort of like clap back or keep them in the game. So this position just pretty much puts us pretty good here. And we're just going to go for the starter main effects. Use MagnaGar, swing, unsuspend, and finish it off. Alright, for our second game, we're facing off against the Mollusk, Ryugumon, Liberator, the Aqua deck, which is also new from this set. Really exciting stuff. And we are going second. So starting with our mulligan hand, we only have really 1 card to work with, so I didn't really want to keep that. Like I mentioned before, a Searcher / Rookie plus a Tamer. Ideally, it's either JP in the early stages for drawing cards. Otherwise, it's Takuya Koji for memory setting. That's really what I want to see. So looking at our opening hand here now looks a lot better, because that's exactly what I want. I have a Rookie, I have Pokemon to work with, plus JP as well. Kokabuterimon is always a really nice one that I like to include as well, just because it helps you reduce your Digivolution costs as you go up, and it can give you a lot of value in return. And we're going to showcase that just in a bit as well. And off with the Boko's early search is great. They're going to go for some early chip damage with jamming already against us, and that's totally fine. They're trying to give us as little memory as possible to work with, and one of the early stages payoff that we trade-off we're going to have to give into the opponent is give them a little bit more memory to work with as per usual, because we always need to establish our Tamer as quickly as possible. In this case this time, I felt like cycling and drawing cards is really important with JP, so I decided to play that first instead of Takuya and Koji just yet, because I feel like I could utilize them a little bit later. Again, cycling is really important, but here they go into Ryugumon. Ryugumon plays something back out, and then they get to bottom deck something that of their own to bottom deck us as well. So we lose our Boko, which is rather unfortunate because I was all ready for like a pretty big swing plan and all that kind of stuff. But that's basically what Ryugumon does anyways. So here's a really nice synergy. Kokabuterimon and Betomon together is very nice, because now we can Digivolve on top of JP just for 1 cost instead of 2, thanks to Beto and Kokabu. The other thing to keep in mind with Kokabu, the downside of that card is just it's not a hybrid, which is kind of unfortunate, but I understand based on lore and they're not supposed to be hybrids, but they have really great synergy. If they were, we could actually tuck them and use them as sources and use them to cycle, because if they were, I'll be running a lot more of these cards as rookies for sure. But anyways, I decided to go for some early sort of attacks, and I went into Rhino Kabuteri just because I felt like I need to draw cards just off the attack and so on, and I'm not worried if it gets deleted. I'm not worried if they bottom deck it, just because I can always play the JP back out, which they chose not to and took the damage instead. So now we have the JP to work with all over again, which is really good. they have to continue to attack into us. They need to apply some pressure. And yeah, things look pretty bad where in terms of security, where we're a lot lower compared to them. But that's totally okay because this is a hybrid deck after all. One of the cool things with hybrid decks is just like, it just reminds you back in BT7. They chip, we potentially get value. And if we find a Takuya Koji like this, we no longer need to play our own anymore from hand. Our security is just always really loaded and stacked. We have lots of things that can activate from security, not just the tamers, we have options too as well. Options that play as tamers at the same time. So this is really, really good for us because now in this moment, we're just going to continuously have start of turn, 3 memory, start a main, pitch 1, draw 1, tuck some stuff underneath, and we're in really good setup position. At this moment, I'm really just missing the new MagnaGar at the moment, so then I can get into it and potentially try to clear their board and remove a bunch of stuff as much as possible. So thankfully we have another Boko to work with, so we can go for a little bit of deeper search, and then we have really good synergy. Kokabu and Boko together is going to be really, really good for us. Of course, the one of Jet Sylphie is a really good card in this deck just because it can recover. It's going to help us stay a little bit longer. But with Kokabu, we reduce the cost by 1 to go into Beetle on top of JP. Boko is going to gain us 2 memory back. Effectively, we gain a memory off this play here. And I certainly want to get rid of it. So this is the moment where I found the Metal Kabuterimon. And I'm contemplating if I want to crash into Rugumon. Because if I do crash into Rugumon, I can de-digivolve it. And then crash together, but they want to bottom deck us, which is totally fine because if we win over the swing and we have enough DP and so on, then we just take out, we get rid of that body. And I'm not worried because Beetlemon always lets me float the JP back from the sources out, which is absolutely fantastic. And here, since they have a memory setter, I decided to set up another JP just because now at this moment, I really need a purple source, meaning we need Koichi. If we can find Koichi, we should be in a very, very good position. I have the option ready to go. I don't have the new MagnaGar just yet from BT18, but at least I have the promo one to work with just in case if I want to. But I'm just trying to wait and see because I feel like I have some time at the moment. If they go a little bit exceptionally wide, that will be the perfect timing to go into the promo MagnaGar because then I can potentially bounce their 3, 4, and 5 if they have any, and they have a 3 and 4 at the moment. So it looks like they go for the Minami play out the Labra. Labra's going to tuck something underneath, and it also is going to gain Rush. 2 attacks potentially coming in. But here we find another JP, which is fantastic for us. And this is once again, guys, like with hybrid decks, it's okay if you're against matchups that don't have explosive damage. Because now you get to see, we also find our Koichi. Our opponent helped us achieve that goal. And by chipping against hybrid decks, you kind of have to, right? With that kind of deck, you have to apply pressure and you have to chip bit by bit. Otherwise, you don't achieve your win condition. But by chipping against us, they're potentially helping us set up. And like I mentioned earlier, we play so many tamers, so many options to play tamers as well at the same time. We are in such a fantastic position right now. We have 3 JPs. We can draw 3 cards potentially. We can gain a memory of Koichi as well. And we have tons of stacks that we can put underneath Takuya Koji. And we have everything we need. Now, you guys can even see I have the Susanoo option. We're just missing Susanoo. But you know what? We're going to be able to finish this game without it as well. And this is how the hybrid decks work anyways. You let your opponent chip a little bit, you gain all that value, and then you can go for a sudden massive burst combo play. And I absolutely love this because when I Digivolve MagnaGar, Kokabuteri is going to reduce the cost by 1. Boko is going to gain me memory back at the same time. And here I can clear off their entire board by getting rid of everything. Wanyamon and Herdables are nice because they can DP reduce so we can get rid of Labra. So I'm just going to go ahead and start swing one at a time because at this point, I have so many attacks, so many choices, so many different options to finish the game. I can go into hybrid. I can actually just swing it out, but normally even. But I wanted to showcase you guys also the nice thing with the promo MagnaGar synergy with this new MagnaGar. Might be a little bit overkill, but say if the opponent has 5 or 6 security, it wouldn't matter. We have made so many attacks unsuspend and again and finish it off. In this game, we're going to be up against Shine Gray, which sort of has some updates to BT17. Still a very, very powerful deck. Very strong in aggression. Very strong with DP reducing. And still very, very viable in my opinion. And this is going to be an interesting matchup for sure because I've never played against Shine Gray with this deck for sure. And yeah, we'll see how we do. And we are going first. So we certainly want to mulligan our hand. as you guys know, the ideal cards that we're trying to look for is rookie plus tamers and all that, and there wasn't that much to work with. So this is a lot better. And always, when it comes to tamers, try to prioritize either JP or Takuya and Koji, just because JP is your cycle. Koichi can come in later. Koichi is really more for the mid-game stages, just because it gives you that purple source and you have recursion. There's nothing we can really recur from trash at the moment anyways. So we're gonna go ahead and try to apply some chip damage, remove that Agumon, and just set up our second tamer already. We actually have some pretty neat pieces to work with very early off the bat. And this can actually really help us. Just because it looks like, oh yeah, there's not a lot of like direct line Digivolution up to go into it. We also don't really have the efficient memory to work with either. I don't have a BT18, I don't have a Loweed I can Digivolve on top of either of my tamers for only 2 cost. I only have 2 memory to work with at the start of my turn anyways. Lobo is going to be pretty tough here. Passing them to 1 is not going to do too much. They have 2 physical trainings plus a memory setter. And this is the moment I'm going to show you guys that there's a chance that you guys should sometimes identify and notice that you can actually go into MagnaGar really early, because once again, the nice thing is all we need is a Koichi plus JP. We have all the color requirements. This is going to exhaust everything that I have, but I felt like this was my pretty much only best viable play here, to go into MagnaGar really early. And that's a potential thing that can happen. If you draw enough cards, if you gathered enough pieces with different names and so on, this is going to be a perfect situation. We got to get rid of that Geo Gray completely and slow them down entirely, because I felt like the next turn it's going to be rather explosive and we might just lose a lot of security out of nowhere. And sometimes with our security, if we don't have enough tamers to give us the clap back, then it's going to be all over. So I felt like, yeah, you know what, get into this MagnaGar as soon as possible. And now we're actually the ones applying the pressure right here. Had to toss away the level 4 source so I don't get to float back a tamer potentially. But one thing I really like about the Koichi one is if I attempt to attack, I can return a source back from the trash. And I can actually grab the Dark to Light option. That's what I'm trying to think, because if I do, that means I can get into it again. And if this stack gets removed, I already have my 5 sources to work with. So I'm going to go ahead, of course, to attack. They're trying to play around us by going to the Geo Gray level 4 outside, knowing that we don't have a level 4 in our stack, but it doesn't really matter because we DP reduce it anyways. So they just have to find a way to pass turn. So we still get rid of that Geo Gray, which is great value for us as we're attacking into them, but they still have an Agumon to work in the raising at the back. Attack with MagnaGar, play out JP as well while I'm at it. And since they have a memory center Marcus, thought I might as well grab a Boko plus a hybrid. And we're pretty okay. If they're not able to chunk us all the way down or take us out in that one single turn there, we have a very good follow-up because we have Boko plus Kokabutari combination. We do really need a purple source though. That's the only downside, because then we won't be able to use the Dark to Light option, so that's tricky. But if they're able to chip us away and potentially give us a Koichi, then we're pretty much good. Or my alternative plan was to Digivolve into Lowy on top of my JP to get the purple source, but if I still can have the Kokabutari plus Boko, I can continue to keep my turn, use the option, and control the board that way as well. But it's very unlikely against Shine Gray, just because they have really good DP reduction effects, and you guys are going to see here, they're going to clear our board potentially off of this by going up their Digivolution line, suspending their Marcuses, and so on, and basically delete, suspend, DP reduce. And they're going to go for 2 checks right here with that. They have even more DP reduction by going into the Shine Gray from BT12. And things are actually looking pretty dangerous now here for us, because we know they probably have that lethal combo. Another 2 checks, and it just doesn't matter. Burst mode, finish it off. Don't forget to grab the Spirit Transcendence collection on the AVAULT store right now, as we have limited quantities. As always, thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, wherever you are. See you in the next video, and this is AVAULT signing out.